The U.S. and China are temporarily cutting their tariffs on each other's goods, and the government of Qatar is in talks about gifting a luxury airplane to the United States that could temporarily serve as Air Force One for the president. Good morning. I'm Corva Coleman from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. The Trump administration says the U.S. and China have agreed to temporarily reduce the high tariffs they imposed on each other's products. NPR's Emily Fang reports the announcement follows weekend talks in Switzerland.
Total U.S. taxes on Chinese goods will go from at least 145% down to 30% for an initial period of 90 days. And Chinese taxes on U.S. goods will initially go down to 10% from around 125% earlier. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer helped negotiate the deal over the weekend. They did not explain what else China had offered in terms of opening up their economy and addressing trade imbalances, besides lowering their own import taxes. The U.S. and China are still negotiating, however, and they say they've set up a trade consultation negotiation going forward to avoid what Bessent called, quote, unfortunate escalations in the last few weeks in tariffs on each other. Emily Fang, NPR News.
In Israel and Gaza, residents are praising President Trump for striking a deal with Hamas to release a dual U.S.-Israeli citizen held in Gaza. Hamas says it will release Israeli soldier Idan Alexander today. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports from a public square in downtown Tel Aviv.
Israelis are gathered in front of a large screen in downtown Tel Aviv awaiting Alexander's release. Many are criticizing their government's leaders for not securing the release of scores of other Israeli hostages still held in Gaza. Around 20 are believed to still be alive. Yehuda Cohen's son is a hostage in Gaza.
We have no trust of any official in our country. We need you. We need the United States.
In Gaza City, resident Ahmad Abu Hadid praised President Trump. Trump has shown Israel that the U.S. is stronger. Without the U.S., there would never be any solutions, he said. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv, with Anas Baba in Gaza City.
The Trump administration is in talks with the Qatari government about accepting a luxury airplane that could temporarily serve as Air Force One. But as NPR's Franco Ordonez reports, the idea is already raising ethical and legal questions.
The White House has acknowledged that the Qatari government has offered to donate a plane to the Department of Defense. ABC was first to report about the plane. If it happens, the plane would be one of the biggest foreign gifts ever received by the U.S. government. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt issued a statement saying that any gift given by a foreign government is always accepted in full compliance with all applicable laws. The president is traveling to the Middle East this week and will stop in Qatar, as well as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. But administration officials say not to expect the gift to be presented or accepted this week while the president is in Qatar. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
Pope Leo XIV met with members of the media today at the Vatican. NPR's Jason DeRose reports from Rome. The pontiff thanked journalists for their service to the truth.
Pope Leo began his remarks on a lighter note in English, following a round of applause from guests.
They say when they clap at the beginning, it doesn't matter much. If you're still awake at the end and you still want to applaud, thank you very much.
But then he turned serious and switched to Italian. Leo called on journalists to strive for communication that, quote, does not seek consensus at all costs and never separates the search for truth from the love with which the truth is sought. And he reiterated the Catholic Church's solidarity with journalists who are imprisoned for seeking and reporting the truth, especially in war-torn regions. Jason DeRose, NPR News, Rome.
President Trump says he'll sign an executive order today to reduce drug prices. NPR's Luke Garrett reports.
President Trump is promising to reduce drug prices by 30 to 80%, quote, almost immediately. Posting on social media, Trump says his executive order will lower pharmaceutical costs to, quote, the same price as the nation that pays the lowest price, end quote. He's calling it a most favored nation policy. In 2020, Trump signed an executive order of the same name and general principle, but it was blocked by the courts and then killed by President Joe Biden a year later. The driving idea is that Medicare would refuse to pay more for certain drugs than the lowest price paid by other developed nations. Drug companies criticized the idea as unworkable and irresponsible in 2020. It's unclear what payments or drugs this new order would apply to. Luke Garrett, NPR News, Washington.
A militant Kurdish group says it's laying down its arms and will disband. The Kurdistan Workers' Party, better known as the PKK, announced today it will disband. It's going to end its armed struggle with Turkey that was aimed at carving out a separate homeland for Kurds. That armed conflict has lasted for more than 40 years. Jury selection for the federal sex trafficking trial of Sean Combs is expected to wrap up today in New York City. NPR's Isabella Gomez Sarmiento reports opening statements are then scheduled to begin immediately.
Jury selection has stretched out for a week. For 3 days, Judge Arun Subramanian questioned New Yorkers on their knowledge of the allegations against the powerful music producer and entrepreneur and their ability to remain impartial. After dozens of jurors were selected to move forward, the final steps of the process were delayed twice. There were fears jurors would back out from serving once selected. Today, the defense and prosecution will narrow that group down to the 12 who will serve, plus 6 alternates. Then, opening statements will begin. Prosecutors allege that Sean Diddy Combs used his businesses to organize and conceal sex crimes for over a decade. Isabella Gomez Sarmiento, NPR News.
For many, the perennial sound of spring or summer is on its way back. That is the sound of cicadas. A rare brood of cicadas that comes like clockwork every 17 years has begun to emerge in the eastern half of the U.S. NPR's Amy Held explains.
For the first time since 2008, Brood 14 is back. Some have been sighted in Tennessee, North Carolina, and Ohio. They're expected to emerge from Georgia to Massachusetts. Considered the second biggest of the dozen or so known periodical broods, they develop underground, then come out by the billions and buzz. That's on top of annual cicadas that emerge every year. Experts say far from being bugged by them, the insects give big benefits, improving water filtration, providing birds an important food source, and with their above-ground stay typically lasting just a few weeks, their decomposing bodies provide nutrition to the soil. But not until they've ensured the next generation to be heard from in 2042. Amy Held, NPR News.
I'm Corva Coleman, NPR News in Washington.